Alright guys, what is going on? Welcome to Ask Munch Mondays. Now, I know I may be a little bit late for this episode, and I know it might be a Thursday, okay? But look, it is what it is. I might rename it to Ask Munch Monthlies, as I read Cognis right in one of the Discords or in Twitch chat. I forget, my memory escapes me. I've got some nice lo-fi in the background for this one, so buckle in, get a cup of tea, have a sit down, let's have a chat. So if you want to get involved, there is a channel in my Discord. I'll link it underneath this video. You can ask me anything you want, basically, and I'm going to go through at least once a month and just go through answering all of the different questions. Can be about LPL, can be about me and my backstory, whatever you want. I'm happy to have a conversation. So with that said, let's get into the questions, shall we? So the first question, this one's by Vash, is why is IG so painfully counterintuitive? Well, the why is a little hard, but I think a huge portion of it comes from ridiculous roster changes all the time. The Shy is a man of his own. Him coming in over Nani is an interesting decision, to say the very least. I think Nani actually was doing a lot for this roster. I actually think that the roster looked better with Nani because it was more stable, right? The Shy brings this craziness to every game that he plays that you never really know what to expect, but more recently it's been negative things, right? Which is a bit of a shame because he's such an incredible player historically. Rookie also, sometimes he is still 1v5ing, but he's having a lot more rough games as of late, so it does feel like this is a roster that just lacks a bit of oomph. I think Shun is the most exciting player on this roster right now. I still think that IG has real potential. I think there's a very real possibility they make it to playoffs, but who knows if this is a team that will step up or not. It's the kind of team that kind of, I don't know, analysis doesn't work with IG. You know, you just gotta watch and you just gotta go with your gut feeling. I think that's the only way to approach IG. Next question comes from someone, that's the username, not just who says, who was your inspiration to go and start streaming? Good question. So I don't know if I have a direct inspiration for specifically streaming. In terms of like casting, my inspirations were like D-Man and Joe Miller and Quickshot. Mostly D-Man and Quickshot, but Joe Miller, like when I was like starting to really get into it a couple of years in from it being a hobby, was when Joe Miller was really popping off. So that he was like an inspiration a little bit later on that helped me develop my craft more. But that wasn't actually the question that was answered, so I'm just rambling now. For streaming, I guess my inspirations are like LS, Dom, Cadrel, the guys that are streaming all day, every day in, day out, managing to make a show of it, managing to step up even when they don't feel like it, because I think that's the hardest thing about streaming, is doing it when you don't feel like it. It's very easy to say, oh yeah, you're just playing video games on camera, so what's the big deal? But there's actually quite a bit of pressure to be entertaining when you're streaming. Like, there's a lot of pressure that streamers put on themselves because you want your numbers to look good, right? If you're, like, let's say you're Cadrel, you're used to 4,000 viewers every stream, well, when you've got 2,000 viewers on your stream, that feels bad. That's an actively nasty feeling. So I think for those guys to constantly just go day in, day out, stream no matter what, I think that's really inspirational. So I'd say those guys are my big inspirations for streaming. So Vash again, why is WE so good at throwing one games? Because they don't have a shot caller. I don't know what the plan is with WE. I saw a rumor, well, not a rumor, I saw an idea that Teacherma should come back into WE so that they have a strong shot caller, because he may suck at laning, but goddamn, he is a decisive shot caller, that is for sure. I would love to see that. I don't think we will see that, but I would love to see it. It would be amazing. But yeah, some of their decision making is really appalling, honestly. It is like that a little bit. All right. People keep talking in this channel. Please stop talking to each other in the channel. It's meant for questions, so I can just read it through like a list. If you're conversing this channel, it becomes functionally useless to me, and I and through these videos instead of actually just being able to read questions. You idiots! Sorry, I didn't mean that. I take that back. I love you guys. Real question. How do you improve your play-by-play, and how do you know what to call out in a big team fight? So, I will give you two things. This is from Miles David, by the way. I forgot to say the name. I'll give you two bits of advice. So in terms of what to call out in a big team fight, just before the fight starts, because most fights, I would say 90% of fights in League of Legends are pretty obvious that they're going to start. If you're not sure what the focus is, there are two issues there. First off, the audience probably isn't sure what the big focus is, which is a failing from you and your color caster earlier on in the cast. You should have been talking about that earlier and setting up what the win conditions were. But second off, if you're not sure what the focus is, if you can't just check the scoreboard and see for the fed person or like see an Orianna, etc., these big team fight ultimates that often change the game, just literally say to your color caster, when Dragon's like a minute away and it's going to be sole point, you know a fight's coming up, go, okay, color caster, what are we looking at in this next fight? What has to happen for either team for this to be a team fight win? They will lay it out beautifully for both you and the audience. You know what to look out for in the play-by-play. The audience knows what to look out for as well. So then even when you highlight that in the play-by-play, the audience was already looking for that too, and it elevates the level of the play-by-play even higher. The second thing I would say is if you are unsure of your ability to play-by-play fights, go and get some like LEC VODs, some LCS VODs, some LCK, even LPL VODs as well. Cast some team fights with the VOD muted on games that you haven't listened to the commentary for. Doesn't matter if it's a good game, just commentate the team fights, because you're going to commentate all kinds of team fights, not just the very best ones across your career. So it's good to do crappy team fights as well. Record yourself commentating them, and then have a listen to what you said. You can even make notes on it if you want to, but get the key points of what you focused, what you followed, what you missed, etc., etc. Then listen to the VOD without it muted. See what the pro play-by-play focused on. See what they were talking about. See what they got hyped about. See what they were able to weave into the fight that you might have missed, like maybe from a narrative perspective or even just the narrative within the game, right? There's a lot of opportunities there as well to learn about how to make wordplay happen, because there are a lot of common themes with wordplay of how you can weave that stuff in. So it's a really good way of getting a very direct comparison between yourself and the guys that you look up to. This is something I did a ton when I was first starting out. I was always comparing myself to like D-Man VODs, quick shot VODs, to level up my play-by-play, to see what they were focusing on so I could focus on the correct things during play-by-play. So I hope that helps, Miles. The next question, why is IG? Yeah, I don't know, mate. I don't know is the answer. Yeah, madness. Absolute madness. They are chaos incarnate. I can't give you anything more. I wish I knew, sir. But you know what? I'm glad that none of us do, because it just makes them oh so entertaining. So the next question from Governor. That was from Cynic, by the way, the why is IG. Governor, how did you come up with the name Munchables? Well, I had... well, there are two answers, really. One of them that I've never really publicly talked about, and one of them that I have. The first one is that my first World of Warcraft character was called Munchkinator, which then anyone that's played World of Warcraft for a long period of time will know that as you make characters, quite often you'll stick with a theme, and each of your characters has a certain part of your name in that name, and then is an adaptation of that. So Munchkinator was my first one, and then there was a million different iterations on Munch, that then Munchables became my Death Knight, which I mained for a very, very long time. So that became kind of my moniker from that point. That's the story that I always say. That's the story I've said in interviews and things like that. But the backstory actually is that in college, I was known as Munchie between me and my friends, because I would always have snacks. And there was this one day where I brought a Kit Kat to college. I'd bought it on the way, and someone had punched a hole in one of the plaster walls on the staircase, and there was like a beam inside of the wall. It was like a curved wall, so there was like a gap between like the foundations and stuff and the actual plaster wall. And so there was like this beam of support or whatever. So I snuck a Kit Kat inside this hole in the wall on the way into college that morning. And then on break, when we went outside, on the way past, with no pockets on me, I was in like shorts and stuff because it was summer. We were walking, nobody has any food, we're all hungry, and then suddenly I have this Kit Kat miraculously out of nowhere. And from that point, the nickname was born and etc. Very funny. Okay, I'll move on. Anyway, so this one's from Charlie, or Bob, or this man goes by many names. One of my moderators and a bit of a legend. What step in your career was the one you were most worried about doing, and why? And again, why does no one love me? That's not true. People love you, dude. I love you, dude. Don't worry. So the step in my career that I was most worried about doing is it's a pretty simple one for me, because most of the moves in my career were like super obvious to me, but there were two that I made that were really not. So the first one was I moved to Las Vegas to chase this game called Vainglory. I'd been doing it for a year or so at that point. I'd already been to living Los Angeles to commentate Vainglory at this point. So the game was doing really well. I was doing very, very well off of the game as well. The community really liked me. It just felt great, which in League of Legends, I had had a little bit of success. I'd gone to IEM. People didn't really like my commentary. Quickshot gave me some very harsh feedback at that tournament as well, which at the time I was too young and naive and egotistical to take on board at all. So I was getting a bit sour with League of Legends at the time. And at the same time, Vainglory had come into my career and was really, really great. Everything was going really well with Vainglory. So I was like, okay, do I completely give up on League of Legends and go move to the other side of the world to talk about Vainglory? And also, it was a hosting role, not a commentary role. So it would have been a bit of a shift in my career. And also, I was going to be producing, which was I'd done a little bit of, but it was not as a full-time job. So it was a big step in a different direction. See, that one I was very unsure about. All right, I don't know why my OBS decided to stop recording partway through me answering some of these questions, so I'm going to try and pick up where I left off, but I apologize if my flow has been knocked sideways a little bit. I feel like it was quite far back as well, which is a bit of a heartbreaker, because I feel like I've been talking for about 20 minutes and not realized it wasn't recording any of it. So we're going to try again. So I was just talking about how hard it was for me to move to Vegas in the first place. It was even harder to move back is the second part to that answer, because I was going from a very comfortable job with a comfortable salary, etc., living in a place that I loved, Las Vegas. It was an amazing place to live. I had friends there. I was very stressed out about my job, but other than that, I was very aware that I was giving up a very good job to try and chase the dream of commentating video games, which, you know, very tough decision to make. My boss at ESP told me, like, this is a crazy decision, but I support you, which I respect him for telling me how it is, but also respecting my decision. But hey, I managed to make it work. Within 6 months, I was on the LPL, so it was really scary decision to make, but it worked out in the end. Follow your dreams, kids. All right, next question. Right, so I'm going to be quicker than I was the first time. You guys never saw the first time, but I've been rambling a lot. But I already know the answers to all the questions now, so I can just rocket through them. If you could have a league character as your best friend, who would it be? The answer was Braum, because he's so wholesome. He's the perfect best friend in League of Legends. Most of the characters are complete psychopaths. And what is your favorite region of Runeterra? It's Shurima. I love Azir. I love all of the characters from Shurima. I think the Nasus, Renekton, and lore is super cool as well. I also really liked Shadow Isles, but I think that Shurima takes it. I think Azir is just badass, dude. I don't know what it is, especially in Legends of Runeterra. I love playing Azir decks. I love that whole thing, that whole shtick. So yeah, it's going to be Shurima. I always used to love Ancient Egypt as well, like all of the mythology there was really cool. What champion would you delete and main in each position? I'm just going to go with one delete and one main. Main is Caitlyn and delete is Yuumi. I hate Tahm Kench and Yuumi. They've reworked Tahm Kench. Now just get rid of Yuumi and bot lane can go back to actual support AD carry 2v2s instead of these stupid champions that just opt out of the laning phase and make it so unfun for everyone involved. I hate those two champions. Dragon asked, which teams are in the LPL are in need of roster changes? Or what changes would you do to improve? I'm not going to cover the entire LPL. I'm just going to pick one team because that conversation could take an entire hour just in of itself. But I'm going to say Team WE. I think if you swapped out, maybe swap out Elk, either with a shot calling ADC or swap out both players in the bot lane so you've got a shot calling support and a more consistent AD carry there. Or maybe just a shot calling support changes everything anyway. I think this team lacks massive direction in the mid game. If you had a stronger voice within this team, I think it would change things, and I think the bot lane is the most inconsistent role that you could change for the better. Although it breaks my heart to say that Elk or Missing should leave this team because I really like WE the way they are. But if you want to win, I think that's the move that you make for that team. So Crimson asks 2 questions, and I gotta say they are terrible questions. Crimson, get it together, man. Why is TSM the best team in the world? They're not, is the simple answer. And 2, why is pineapple and pizza a war crime? What are you talking about, dude? It's fucking incredible. It's the best kind of pizza. So, dude, I'm ashamed of you asking questions like this. Okay, Bob asks, what principles/practices have you picked up through your careers that have helped you in casting? Which I'm not sure if this is the same question as a different one. Okay, yeah, so I think this is the one. I can't remember if someone... No one wrote the word Monica. Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I'm not answering the same question twice here, because I've already done one recording. My brain is getting a bit scrambled on which questions I've done and not. So the best practices I've had in working in esports and specifically working in broadcast there are 2 things. First off is own your shit. This is the best way to think about work. There is a lot of times when things are suboptimal, right? Maybe your colleague isn't pulling their weight. Maybe you're being given bullshit by the people higher up. Maybe the person beneath you in the chain is not doing what you asked properly of them. It's at that point that you got to pick up the slack, and it fucking sucks, but it is just the way that the world works in my experience. A lot of the time, it is out of your control, but you have to be able to figure out when it actually is in your control. Whether it's your fault or not, it is your responsibility to get what you need to do done. Especially when you're a producer, but also when you're a caster. This applies to pretty much any job, honestly. If you just own your shit, you individually will succeed. Sometimes it is out of your control, but most of the time, it is within your control. It's going to be stressful, it's going to be hard, but if you just own your shit, you will succeed. So I think that's a really good way to look at work, and especially a good way to look at how to succeed when the odds are against you is just do better. Just do better than everyone else against the odds, and you will stand out from the crowd. The other thing I would say is that people follow people, not games. So as a commentator, I am a storyteller. As a producer, I am a storyteller. I will try my best to focus on the players as much as possible, because ultimately the reason I love watching LEC, for example, is because I know all of the players in the LEC. I know all the casters in the LEC. I want to see these guys succeed. I want to see these guys fail. I want to be a part of that story. I want to go along for the ride, the ups and the downs, you know? And I think that's the most important thing about sports in general. I think it's true for real sports. I think it's true for all esports as well. People follow people. And so if you're working in broadcast and you follow that moniker, I think you will tell a good story if that's what you're aiming to do, is tell the story of the players instead of just the story of League of Legends. Because ultimately, I can tell the story of League of Legends by watching a solo queue game. You can tell a much better story by talking about the players. So Quincy asks, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck built chem tank first? I would say as much good wood as a woodchuck chuck would chuck if it went for a gale force, which almost rhymes. And I'm going to move on from there. So Cantalus says, if you could switch an ultimate ability of one champ with one of their basic abilities and rebalance appropriately, which ones do you choose? A Tom Kench Diana. I thought about this one for a while. I couldn't think of a good answer. And then I came up with Zoe maybe. Could be cool. You could put the Sleepy Trouble Bubble or the Spell Thief on the ultimate. Maybe Spell Thief becomes kind of like Silas, but you steal one of the basic abilities, or I don't know, something like that. Or Sleepy Trouble Bubble could be OP in some crazy way. I don't know. But have the Portal Jump as a basic ability. Suddenly the game completely changes for Zoe. Could be interesting. I think it would be terrible, but, you know, that was the answer I could come up with for that one. Okay, the next question. Who is the cutest champ of the game? This is from Milky Cereal. And why is it Gnar? I do think Gnar is very much up there. He is adorable, but I think Nunu and Willem take the cake on this one because the death animation, man. Oh, it breaks my heart. It's so sad. Yeah. Oh, Willem, why? Also Astro-Gnar. Super cute. I agree, Charlie. So, Shahu, which champion / player combo excites you the most when it is picked? E.g., Draven for Jackie Love, Shahu Lucian, Castle Lee Sin. I'm going to say Silas Knight. Knight Silas. Incredible player. Every time I see Silas locked in for Knight, I feel like the game is already over. I feel like Top Esports have already won at that point. He's got something like a 20 KDA right now. It's honestly disgusting. Like, there's nothing you can do. There is no counterplay. He's on another level. Crimson Cyclist, how do you keep up with the pace of the LPL, given that there are so many best of threes in a given week? The answer is, in 2020, I really struggled. I burnt myself out completely trying to watch every single game of LPL. It is not feasible, especially last year when the schedule was pushed up because spring was delayed for a month and a half by COVID. It was 3 series a day. It was totally unreasonable to try and follow everything. This year, what I do is when I'm starting to feel a little bit burnt out and I feel like I need a break, I take a day off. I take 2 days off if I'm not casting. And I can always go back and watch those VODs later. When I next cast that team, I'll make sure I've caught up on all of the VODs and all of that good stuff. But it's really important to give yourself time off, because if you don't, you do just burn out. And then you get sick of it, and then you resent going to work. And I talk about video games for a living. If I'm resenting going to work when I talk about video games for a living, then you know something's gone wrong. So really, really important for me at least, and you know, everyone works differently, but for me personally, I have to make sure that I get a couple of days off, that I do give myself time to unwind, because I do get really stressed out. When I'm stressed, I struggle to perform. So for me, it's about just making sure that I do actually have some work-life balance and have some free time for myself. So the Risen Dead asks, do RNG make playoffs? The answer is straight up yes. I'll be very surprised if RNG doesn't make playoffs. Vash asks, is it coming home with a strike through it? And he breaks my heart as he asks it, you bastard. Ira is not on fire, whose name reminds me of like Charlie is so cool like and all those guys. And I forget the name of the YouTuber who was not on fire. I want to say it was Alex is not on fire or something, but I think that's Alex is on fire, which is or Alexis on fire, which is that metal band. I can't remember who was on fire. Phil. No, it was Amazing Phil, and Dan is not on fire. There you go. Massive tangent there. Does it refer to the friends who made it along the way? And if so, is that why they want to come home? It refers to football. The song is literally Football's Coming Home. But it's more about the concept of football, right? It's about the glory coming home, and I don't know. It's just a meme at the end of the day. Hoflax, how do you keep up with all the how do you keep all the LPL teams in order with almost every team having a J, G, or L on them? I find myself losing track and mixing things up. I think the best way of doing this is trying to get to know the players in the teams a little bit. Because I struggled with this when I first joined the LPL. But what I find is, like, for example, it would be easy to get, like, Xiaohu, Xiaolongbao, Xiaolao Hu, all of these kind of guys, Xiaoxi, I guess, all of the players with Xiao in their name, it would be easy to get them mixed up, right? But if you actually look at pictures of those players, look at them historically, look at the champion pools they play, get to know their gameplay, because every player plays a little bit differently. Once you start to figure them out as a person, it stops being hard to remember, because their name is not something that you need to remember anymore. It's just who that person is, right? So I think it's about thinking about them as a person instead of as a statistic. Makes it a lot easier to keep track. Wrong answers only. What does SOFM, SMLZ, CLG, and SLT stand for? God, that's hard to think of on the spot without swearing and just insulting the players. So I guess I will try and answer those in the Discord. I'll have a think when I'm not on camera, because I feel like this is just going to take up hours of the video trying to think of good puns for that one. But I think CLG being Counter Logic Gaming is actually perfect. I don't think that one needs changing at all. So Charlie with another question. Can I correct this to what do they mean? Also, can I add, what's the best way to have a BLT? The best way to have a BLT is however you like a BLT. Personally, I like lightly toasted, and I mean lightly toasted bread, fresh bacon so it's still hot, but cold salad out of the fridge. And make sure you've salted the tomatoes, because I don't know what it is, but tomatoes plus salt, it just makes something heavenly happen. I don't know why, but salt really just brings tomatoes out in some magical way. And also, I would put a little bit of mayo on personally, but that's, you know, different people have different opinions on mayonnaise. But with that, I'm going to wrap things up. I believe this is about just under 30 minutes of a video, so it's about the same as the first episode. So, hey, good stuff. We're actually getting questions, so thank you very much, everyone, for asking questions. If you have yet to ask a question and you want to know something, jump into the Discord, put it in the channel, and I'll be doing another one of these videos when there are ample questions in the Discord channel to answer. So please do ask away, chaps and chapettes, and everyone else as well. But with that, that's going to be the end of the video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in Champ Select.